Hans Landa stands out as the guy you think about every time you want to talk about Inglorious Bastards, which is a monumental achievement because this movie has so many things that you should be distracted by. From the violence, which is just ludicrously excessive even by Quentin Tarantino standards, and a masterclass in how to slowly introduce tension into a scene, and this guy, and the good looks and recognizable star power of Brad Pitt, which honestly makes you wonder why life is so unfair. But you don't, because the one thing that sticks with you more than anything after you watch this movie is Hans Landa. And there are three major reasons why he is so memorable. The first is how well this French farmer Lapetit acts as a foil to Hans, because Lapetit in so many ways is the default lazy answer most people give when they are asked the question how somebody can display dominance, gain control over a room, and even other people. Lapetit is a strong buff dude and authoritative in terms of his voice and attitude. And you see that emphasized perfectly at the start with him chopping a tree trunk with an axe. His physicality, stature, and strength are at the forefront here. And then you also see him telling the two girls to go back inside and close the door in an authoritative voice, which they listen to. Now, obviously, they are his daughters, so they kind of have to listen to him. But also, I think if you were to replace those two girls with anybody else, they would pretty much do the exact same thing. You do not want to mess with this guy, and his position should not be questioned. And then you have Hans Landa, a guy who doesn't have the physical stature or the authoritativeness of the French farmer. He does have an army of officers at his command, but he chooses not to use them. We'll get to why in a second. But Hans Landa does not share any of the physical stature. In fact, Lapetit could probably crush him with relative ease, and the movie really plays into that. At first, Hans Landa is going all the way across the field with his hand extended all the way out to shake Lapetit's hand, and Lapetit just stands there and sparsely extends his hand. You have Hans Landa introducing himself with a smile, and Lapetit has a stone cold look on his face and a stern voice asking him, how can I help you? Except with the tone he says it in, it's more like he's saying, what the hell do you want, little man? At this point, at this point, if I asked you who you think has more power and control from this interaction thus far, you would probably say Lapetit because Hans walked all the way across the field to shake his hand, and Lapetit basically dictated the flow of the rest of the conversation with the question, how can I help you? Pair this with the fact that Lapetit is physically more intimidating than Hans Landa, and you have the odds completely stacked up against Hans Landa, and yet he effortlessly manages to run through all the obstacles and come out the other side as the man with more power and more control over Lapetit. He does this in two very subtle ways. One is by using all the information that he has learned to his advantage. He knows that the German military have already torn Lapetit's house apart previously in search of hiding Jews. So he does have a slight impression that Lapetit might be a pushover. And this shake hand basically proves it because Lapetit at the start of the interaction has a confrontational frame. He was pretty much coming across as a tough guy who considers their presence a sign of conflict. And yet Hans Landa shaking his hand completely breaks this frame. A stern, no nonsense guy who considers German soldiers a threat would never do that. So he's given up his frame, which further adds to Hans Landa's suspicion of him being a pushover. And then he keeps testing Lapetit by holding out the hand of his youngest daughter for a little bit too long, and she's really scared of him. He also makes Lapetit say the nickname the people of France have given him, which Lapetit clearly does not want to, but does. All of this is him confirming and exploiting the fact that Lapetit is a pushover. Another piece of information that he relies on in order to make La Petite listen to him is the fact that La Petite has three daughters. From the line, "The rumors I've heard are all true. Each one of your daughters are more beautiful than the last." He knows that La Petite has three daughters, which means he is more likely to be cooperative because he doesn't really want their lives to be in danger. Now, one thing that I really do want to specify here is he never uses the German soldiers as a brute force to impose his will. Instead, he uses them more as a background force that people can very much see but never acknowledges them enough. So there's a level of uncertainty that's always on Lapetit's mind as to whether or not he will use the soldiers, and his friendly demeanor is just something they have to accept because of it. He doesn't use the German soldiers mainly because he enjoys systematically taking people down and gaining power over them. Another factor that majorly influences how he gains power over other people is just by constantly giving them the illusion of power. Lines like "please join me at your table" are basically orders reframed as requests, and lines like "I was hoping you could invite me inside your home so we could have a discussion" gives La Petite an illusion that he is in control, which paired with Hans Landa's smile and general upbeat tone completely allows him to get what he wants. Now, back to why he never uses the military to impose his will. He enjoys going into rooms with men who could destroy him, and he loves just gaining power and control over them. He enjoys the fact that La Petite pours milk for him. He enjoys the fact that La Petite has to just sit there and powerlessly listen to him and helplessly watch what he does next. He enjoys the fact that Aldorain, who at this point is completely armed and is cuffing Hans Landa, cannot kill him because of a deal he did with the OSS colonel, which he again effortlessly navigated because he knew that the Americans were trying to bomb the Germans when they were in the cinema. A piece of information which he used to leverage himself out of the losing side of the war and secure himself a great life in America. He loves walking into a room and gaining power over people who could absolutely destroy him. Another thing that he loves is people being afraid of him, which we see on multiple occasions, with how he is so amused and happy by the fact that Aldorain flinched when he touched him, and how much he enjoys that Shoshana is running away from him in complete fear at the start of the movie. But the best example is when he meets the three daughters of La Petite, and the youngest of the bunch is really showing how afraid she is of him, and like a shark just smelling blood, he just goes right to her, kisses her hand, and holds it for an uncomfortably long time. And throughout the scene, when these two are together, he continues staring at her with complete seriousness, and he is really enjoying the fact that she is terrified of him. He loves people trembling in fear because of him, which is one of the biggest reasons why he killed this lady, Bridget von Hammersmark. He interrogated her, like everybody else, and he knows that she is working with the Americans and the Englishmen in order to bomb the cinema and kill all the German soldiers. And he slowly keeps making her realize that, which obviously terrifies her at first, and he further indulges himself with the line, "What is that American expression again? If a shoe fits, you must wear it." Basically telling her that he knows the three people who escorted her to the cinema are Americans, except this time instead of trembling in fear, she straight up challenges him by saying, "What are you going to do now, Colonel?" Which infuriates him, so he strangles her to death, not offering her a moment of peace as she's dying, which is another core trait of Hans Landa. He is incredibly cruel and sadistic to an inhuman degree. You can pretty much see it on his face when he's trying to shoot Shoshana down after he has killed all her family members. You can see it all on his face, how much he is enjoying all this, and it kinda looks like his orgasmic face. So there's that to further let you know how much he is enjoying this. Hans Landa is a complete monster that terrifies you by the lack of humanity. And it's this combination of fascination and terror that makes him such a great character. Because the way he effortlessly navigates through all the obstacles and how he gains control and power over a lot of scenarios, not by brute force but through effective use of information, is so interesting that you just lean in and have your eyes glued to the screen every time he is on. But the cruelty and inhumanity of Hans Landa, just enjoying the murder and punishment he bestows upon other people, just makes you terrified to the point where you want to look away, but you're also so interested in how he cleverly navigates the situation. And this always keeps you glued to the screen, anticipating what he's going to do next. And that is what makes Hans Landa such a great character. With that being said, hope you enjoyed this. If you did, make sure to subscribe to this channel. I'm currently working on a Spider-Verse video which will be dropping next. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you next time. Peace out.